Hey everybody, Dr. Phil here. So this is going to be a video on developing employees for future success. So with no further ado, let's just go ahead and jump right into it. So the first thing I want to talk about is development and training in the wider context of like training, development, and career management. So the first thing to discuss here is employee development, which is the combination of formal education, job experiences, relationships, and assessment of personality and abilities to help employees prepare for future careers. Now, rapidly changing business environment is of course including international expansion, because obviously now we live in a much more global and globally interconnected society and of course economic world. Employees need a broad range of technical and interpersonal skills, and training prepares employees for other jobs or positions and changes in responsibility. So, what we call a protean career changes are frequently based on changes in person's interest and skills and the work environment. So, employees take responsibility for managing their own careers. That's pretty much everybody these days. And employees are continually developing marketable skills. Employers and employees need to find matches between the employee's interests, skills, and weaknesses, and of course, development experiences involving jobs, relationships, and formal courses. So, it's not just you've got to, from an employer standpoint, and again, not employee, employer standpoint, from the standpoint of the firm, they've got to find ways to attract people, but they got to find ways to keep people. Because a lot of firms are very good at attracting people, but then they don't really develop the employees. Employees get bored and they leave and go elsewhere. This is why career management and development planning is, of course, so important. So, formal education. So these could include things like workshops, short courses, university programs. A lot of universities now do, as you see, executive MBA programs. A lot of times they're sort of accelerated and compressed. So instead of a traditional MBA program taking 2 years, it may only take like 10 months or even a year. Many companies have training and development centers. Well, that's yeah, that's true, but again, those are more bigger, more well capitalized firms that have more extensive resources. And increasingly move away from classrooms to the internet. So a lot of training now is just being delivered over the internet. A lot of it could be webinars. It could be like self-paced courses, more so from the traditional model of you being in a classroom. Now, with respect to assessment, we can think of this as collecting information and providing feedback to employees about behavior, communication, or skills. Most frequently used to assess managerial potential. So, the firms are trying to figure out, okay, who amongst these employees has the potential to perhaps be in a supervisory role and/or management role one day. And it typically comes from employees, peers, managers, or customers. Now, the methods of assessment to do this may vary, but they could include, this isn't obviously no way an exhaustive list, they could include psychological tests, self-peer and management ratings, and it could also involve putting employees through assessment centers. So as an example of a psychological profile, you may have heard of the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator, MBTI, commonly abbreviated as Myers-Briggs. So it really measures four areas. It measures energy, um, introversion or extroversion, information gathering, sensing or intuitive, decision making, thinking or feeling, and lifestyle, judging or perceiving. This helps organizations understand the communication, motivation, teamwork, work styles, and leadership of the people in their groups. And research on effectiveness, however, is inconclusive. So, it's widely, Myers-Briggs is widely talked about, but has anybody ever really proved that it's effective? And the answer is no. So with respect to assessment centers, these are typically going to be off-site, i.e. not at the employer's location. They can help identify whether employees have the personality characteristics, administrative skills, and interpersonal skills for managerial jobs or for working in teams. So the types of activities that they might use at assessment centers, they could do group discussions, but you notice without a leader. They might use interview questions. They may utilize in-basket exercises. They may even do role plays. So, for example, here is a workplace scenario, most likely fictitious, hypothetical. How would you go about handling this? Okay, performance appraisals and 360-degree feedback. So performance appraisal is formally defined anyway, is a formal process for measuring employee performance. It identifies causes of performance discrepancy and develops plans for improvement. So this should be something that's kind of like ongoing. You really don't want to wait until just once a year. If you see a problem with an employee, you really want to correct it right then and there. And also encourage them too, right then and there. Don't wait for their evaluation to give the feedback then. 360-degree feedback is performance measurement by the employee's supervisor, peers, employees, and customers. So as you can see, it's pretty wide-ranging, hence the name 360-degree feedback. The benefits are multiple perspectives of managers' performance, and it also establishes formal communications. Limitations, however, that it involves a significant time commitment, and you need a facilitator to interpret the results. And again, the results, you could argue that the results interpretation may be somewhat subjective. So, and ratings don't provide ways to act on the feedback. So it's like you've got these ratings, but then how do you actually, affect the necessary changes? So about job experiences. So think about like a combination of relationships, problems, demands, tasks, and other features of an employee's job, right? So most employee development is going to occur here, right? And usefulness varies depending on the employee views. Some employees are more motivated than others, for example. And various job assignments provide employee development. Now, working outside one's home country is the most important job experience that can develop an employee for a career in the global economy. So, if you get moved to, say, a different country, then, you're going to learn the customs, the cultures of that country. You're going to learn, even if you're doing the same job over there, the odds are because of, customs and cultural differences, the job may be done a little differently. So what about types of job assignments? So we could talk about job enlargement, making sort of the scope of the job bigger, and then also job rotation, rotating people around different jobs, which of course is very handy and very, it comes into its own when, say, like an employee is out on vacation or maternity leave or paternity leave, right? Because then other people can know how to do that job. Now, with respect to transfers, promotions, and downward moves, there are sometimes temporary assignments with other organizations, right? So some companies will do externships. So you go kind of like a secondment, typically to another company for a while. Sabbatical is very common in, of course, the clergy and somewhat in academia too. You may go on like a research sabbatical for a year or two just to work as a professor, so that we can work on research. Interpersonal relationships. So employees can develop skills and increase their knowledge by interacting with experienced members of the organization, which of course is always good for everybody involved. A mentor is defined as an experienced, productive senior employee who helps develop less experienced employees, usually called the protege. The recent trend of reverse mentoring, in which younger employees mentor senior employees, and that's because a lot of times younger employees now may be more tech savvy. That's something that the companies want the older, more senior employees to be able to grasp and pick up. A coach could be a peer or a manager who motivates the employee, helps him develop skills, and provides reinforcement and feedback. Now, data gathering, often aimed at providing individual employees with information about themselves. So we talked a little bit about the Myers-Briggs, the MBTI. I won't go into all of them here, but there's a whole range of different types of self-directed inventories that people could do. There's questionable whether they really work because two people could be pretty much the same character traits, and then Myers-Briggs could say you're this and then you're that. So like I mentioned earlier in the lecture, whether these things really work is the research has never proved that. Now, what about feedback? So employees receive information about skills and knowledge and how they fit with the organization's plans. So an organization's responsibility is to communicate the performance evaluation and the opportunities available to the employee given the organization's long-range plans. And then succession planning. So this is a term the sort of the higher up the organization you go, the more likely you are to hear this term. So this would be identifying and tracking high potential employees who can fill key positions when they become vacant. So if you ever heard the expression like so and so is being like groomed for a job, that would be one example of succession planning. When that person leaves a job, they plan to put that that other person in. Now, this can create several benefits. Senior management regularly reviews leadership talent. It ensures that critical talent is available, sort of like waiting in the wings, if you will, provides development experience that managers must complete, and also helps attract and retain managerial employees. So again, think about this idea of succession. Another term you can use there is continuity. You want to have these people in the pipeline, right? So that the company does not experience operational, administrative, financial challenges when key people leave. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about in this video, so this is a fairly brief one, is dysfunctional managers, because we should address this because a lot of firms, a lot of industries, enterprises, you're going to run into this. They may engage in behaviors that make them ineffective or toxic. So some traits of dysfunctional managers could be an insensitivity towards other people, the inability to be a team player, that's a big one. They may be arrogant, they may be self-serving, they may have poor conflict management skills, there may be an inability to meet business objectives, and there may be one of the most serious is the inability to adapt to change. So hopefully you don't run into this in your career. The odds are at some point you probably will, statistically speaking. Um, so this can be a challenge that it's just worth sort of knowing ahead of time. As always, thank you for watching, and I will see you in a future video.